in, we're going to make our first attempt at sourdough. You know, I've been watching videos and reading stuff, and then we got our high altitude. Who knows? So first we got the starter, and I started mine from the beginning, but it looks good. It's bubbly up and down, it's elastic. I've been working on it for about a week, and I've been following the instructions. We'll see. Also, it seems like, you know, you're talking about fermentation, right? So I'm using spring water, El Dorado spring water. Temperature is supposed to be important, so I'm going to heat this up for a little bit. Not a bunch, but I'm going to get the temperature, I don't know, in the 90s somewhere. And one thing I'm learning about sourdough is everybody has very strong opinions. So the first one that I was confronted with was autolyse or no autolyse. And autolyse, I don't know, that's where you put the flour and some of the water together and let it kind of sit for 20 or 25 minutes in a warm place just to incorporate before adding the starter and the salt. No idea, but that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to start out by measuring out my water. I've been doing bread just putting cups of flour in, and apparently the flour can vary widely by how much it's packed, whatever. So one thing that I am hearing agreement on is that you're better served measuring your ingredients by weight. So this has been adjusted for altitude, and I'm going to double the recipe so that this makes a lot of sense. Even if I have 2 failures, it just gets me 2 times more practice in handling the dough. And time on task over time seems to be one of the reoccurring things. So I've got a scale here, and I'm putting just a cup on it, which I'm going to zero out. So now it acts as if this cup isn't there. And I'm going to get 750 grams of water into this measuring cup. Oops, that's more than 750. Let's take some of it out. 715. 40, 53. I'm going to call that good enough. There we go. And so I'm going to start out with my bowl. Let's dry this off. And for the autolyse, you don't put all of the water into it, but a goodly part of it. So of these 750 grams of water, I'm going to put 700 in and reserve that additional 50 grams for if I need it later. So let's zero this out. Okay. So that's going to be most of this water. That's 450. 630, 670, 701, and then I've got a little bit left over if I need to further moisten this budding dough after the what do we call that? Autolyse. Must be French. So now I'm going to zero this out again. So now the scale doesn't even recognize that there's water or any weight from the bowl. And I'm going to put in 1,000 grams of white, unbleached, organic bread flour. There's 100. I don't know if this bowl's going to be big enough. We'll see. Better slow down. And now I'm at 900. $930. I have absolutely no feel for how much a handful is, so I like the idea of the scale. $991. Oh, 95. 97. And something I can already tell that I've been doing wrong with my other dough is exactly 1,000. There we go. Adding more flour because it's sticky. You know, in Colorado, we have to make the dough a lot moister. It's one of the altitude corrections that we make. And so we'll be back to the rustic loaves, and we'll play with that in a bit. I got a new little sourdough starter kit. So I've got a little stirry guy, which I'm going to go get. Look at this. There's a name for it. I call it the stirry guy. And apparently this first round, I'm just incorporating all of the this water into, all the flour into the water, and then just letting it sit for 20 minutes or a half hour so that this the moisture can absorb and rest into the dough. There's a lot of resting in this process, which I have to say I kind of approve of. I like the idea of resting. And they talk about shaggy dough. So apparently this, mostly we would just want to get, I'm going to call this autolyse period, just kind of introducing the water and the flour, letting them get acquainted for a little bit, and then I'll come back and introduce them to my friend, the starter, and the salt. This looks pretty shaggy to me. And I'm going to scrape the bottom of it. Get this all off. This feels warm. One of the guys I was watching said that you want the dough to not get below 84 degrees. Wow. Like he even says you shouldn't knead it on and shape it on a stone, like this is, a granite, I don't even know if this is granite, some slab of stone, because it's too cold. So I'm asking myself, do I need to go all OCD and heat up the stone? Whatever. But since I'm doing something I've never done before, and I'm attempting to follow directions, and I'm measuring my success at stuff by just writing it down and testing it. Heating up that water, this Autolyse dough is sitting at 97 degrees. All right, so I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to put it just on the stove because there's a pilot light on the stove, and I figured that would be a fairly warm and consistent place to keep it. We've got nothing cooking on there, and I'm going to let this rest for 25 minutes and then come back and introduce the starter and the salt. So of course I wasn't recording, that's Roxanne method, but I incorporated the starter and the salt into this and kept my hand wet and kneaded this, or kind of slapped it around, incorporated it for probably 10 minutes, maybe 12. And now I'm gonna put this on the stove, and over the course of the next 3 to 4 hours, I need to stretch and fold it. Stretch and fold, maybe once every half hour for, I don't know what, 4 times? So my first dilemma, I'm sure first of many, the high altitude recipe says that you don't want it raising more than 50%, not doubling in size. So it has been rising for 30 minutes, and everywhere I see it says do the fold and stretch at 30-minute intervals. And when I pull this out off the stove, the dough was about to this line. It has raised a little bit, but it certainly hasn't increased half size. But I think I'm going to go ahead and do the first pull and stretch and try with the every half hour thing. So first I'm going to wet my hands. I'm going to loosen it up from the sides. It feels very sticky and tacky. Boy, this water, wetting your hands, makes all the difference. The dough feels cool. I think after this stretch, I'm going to put it in the oven with the light on. That's a suggestion for keeping it under some temperature. So now I'm going to kind of reach under this, hands all wet, pull it up. You don't want it up so far that it rips. Then a quarter turn, wet my hands again, reach under there, pull it up, and kind of wag it. There. My hands again. Reach under here. Pull. Feels elastic. Feels a little different than when something's happening. And a fourth time. So you just do it once per side. And now I'm going to leave that, cover it, and this time I'm going to put it in the stove with the light on because it'll be a little bit warmer. It's probably 68 degrees in my house right now, and the sun's going down. Usually this room is warmer in the daytime because we've got all these windows and it warms up the room. So I'm just going to throw this in the stove to let it do its thing for another 30 minutes. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to do my third stretch and fold. The second one, the dough didn't raise too much, but there were some bubbles. Same thing it looks like now. You see like a big bubble right there. So something's happening. I wet my hands. Get it loose from the sides. I have no idea if I'm doing this right. grab, stretch. Feels really elastic. It's getting a little bit tighter, the dough. And fourth one. All right. Gonna cover it up. We've got one more of these to go in a half hour. So we are at one of the many moments of truth here when I do the first shaping of this dough, which is wet. We will see if I put too much water in it back at the beginning, but somehow I don't think I'll know that tonight. I'm just going to trust the process. But because it's so wet and it's my first time, I just got these bins, which you can either place the dough in here to proof and it'll come out with this pattern, or you can put the liners on it and it'll be more of a smooth pattern. I'm going to keep the liners in there, and I'm going to flour the dickens out of them, because not only is this the first time that I've used these bins, but it's also the first time I've tried this at all. And I'm enjoying this bread journey. So I'm going to really heavily flour this bin, because the dough is going to sit in here overnight in the refrigerator, and if all goes well, it's going to rise up the side of this thing. So I want to make sure, and it's going to sit in there for 12 hours or something, and it's moist, so I don't want it to get stuck to the edges of this thing, and I'd rather have it over dusted on the outside than under dusted. So I'm going super heavy on the flour here. Worst that happens is that I do it again tomorrow. All right, so now I'm dusting this one. I got this kit that has one long one for like a bread loaf and a round one for, I don't know, like an artesian loaf or something. So I'm going to do one of each. Feels kind of nice. So now I'm going to roll this dusty side down, and then I'm going to try to pinch these bits together to continue with that tension, so that this whole thing of dough is kind of holding on to itself. And then I'm going to put a little dusting on the top of this. And down the sides. I'm going overboard on the flour because I don't want my first attempt to stick to the sides. Well, that's just got a little bit of bounce. That's my first attempt at shaping a loaf. Let's try attempt number 2. Pull this over here. And I'm gonna knock out the gas and turn this into a circle. I'm going to cover these bad boys and put them in the fridge for 8 to 12 hours. Yeah. Okay, so we just took these 2 loaves of bread out of the oven. I cold proofed them overnight. So I did 4 stretch and folds at a half-hour apiece. Then I shaped them. And I was really worrying about them because, boy, the dough sure was sticky and wet still when I was done. But, you know, we're in Colorado, and one of the solutions, all of my reading is showing, is that you need a wet dough to compensate for the altitude. And so I got up this morning, I proofed them, I shaped them, then I put them in the fridge to do a long cold proof. And they were in the fridge overnight for about 10 hours. Then I put this one in the Dutch oven, covered for 20 minutes, and then uncovered for another 20 minutes. And I pulled it out with an internal temperature of 205 degrees. Now I have to let this, and it's beautiful, look at that. This is called the ear, unbelievable. The real proof will be when we cut it open and see if if it's got big pockets inside of it, if it's got, gummy spots, so forth. But it sounds pretty nice. What do I know? So that was the one that was done in the Dutch oven. This one was done in a regular cake pan. This feels heavier than this one does. It also is browner on the bottom, and I had to cook it a little bit longer. So this one was covered for 20 minutes, uncovered for 20 minutes, and then the internal temperature was like 190. So I put it back in for another 5 minutes, which brought the internal temperature up. But it feels denser. It looks great. And it sounds hollow. We will see. So I'll return in a couple hours and cut into one of these, and we'll see. This one I feel more hopeful for. It feels lighter. The drumming feels hollower. This one feels a little denser, heavier. The bottom is a little crispier. There's some cracks at the bottom of this. So, but for my first attempt, they didn't come out exploded. They didn't come out with any of the other sad things I've seen online with people's first sourdough attempt. And I'll tell you, man, these smell delish. So it is so tempting to just cut into this bad boy and slather butter all over it, butter delivery system. But I'm going to exercise patience and wait until these cool to cut into it. So now we have the moment of truth. We're going to cut into one of these loaves. Thoroughly cool. Do you admire my self-control? I don't know if one should cut this away or that away. I'll leave the ear. Feels like the knife is dragging through this a little bit. Might be gummy. Wow. Look at that. Look at those big open pockets. People do this. Wow. Maybe I'm just not good at cutting bread. Well, we could take the maybe out of that. There you go. Looks like it's springy. I don't feel any gummy. Nice big holes. Wow. That's delicious. So if I look at, see this? Peanut butter. I'll go give Dwayne a piece of this.